All right, so um, President Tinubu was sworn in May 29, and that is not news. So typically, the first 100 days of any president, it never used to be a big deal before until I think it was Roosevelt, sometime, last century, made it a big deal. And then now most presidents around the world tend to see the first 100 days as a barometer of how well a government might perhaps perform in the coming months and years. So that's why it's very pivotal, because if you don't seem to get your first 100 days right, and things might not just augur well. And I think it was a bit of a challenge for the Buhari administration. The first 100 days was a little bit slow, and to a lot of people, that was one of the reasons why they didn't really start on a very good foot when it comes to the economy, and that kind of affected them all through. But looks like it's been a very busy first 100 days, as my my slides here would show. First of all, on May 29, the president went off script, for a lot of people don't know, and removed fuel subsidy. That was the major decision that he took on the very first day at work. And then, of course, June 14th, they announced the unification of the exchange rate. That essentially collapsed all the exchange rates windows that we had in Nigeria into one single window. It was a big deal. For the first time, Nigeria was moving into a managed float exchange rate system. So that was a major achievement for the government. And of course, appointed, is it 45 ministers? Notably among the ministers were some young names, people that a lot of young Nigerians resonate with. And of course, the suspension of the CBN governor and his eventual resignation was also one of the, we can call it an achievement in the first 100 days of the current administration. Subsequently, a new CBN governor has been nominated, and yesterday we heard that they've resumed the current CBN, the new CBN governor and the deputy governors as well, resumed in acting capacity. A bit of a legal quagmire there. I don't know how they want to wrangle that, because the CBN Act actually says when you resign, when the deputy governors resign, they should give 3 months notice. But looks like this is resignation on the spot, and they're leaving. Seems to be, and of course, the suspension of the EFCC chairman, and we haven't heard much since he's been suspended. We heard he's been docked as well. No charges have been brought forward yet against him. And of course, there was the big news of the setting up of the Presidential Task Force on fiscal policy and tax reforms. It's going to be headed by Taiwo Oyedele, who incidentally has been on this economic outlook in the past as well. And we've all shared, we've all learned from a lot of the amazing nuggets that he has shared. So now he's in government to do a lot of the things that he's been advising that the government should do. So amazing to see him there. And of course, the surge in FAC allocation, as soon as fuel subsidy removal was done, the government now had a lot more money to share, to states and to the federal government as well. In July, I think they shared as high as 1.9 trillion. Not sure that we had seen anything that much before. That happened in July. So you can call that major achievement as well. And of course, the Navy stepped up their fight against crude oil theft. And we learned a few months ago that the Navy had burnt 3 rogue oil vehicles, listed names there as well. So all in a bid to fight crude oil theft. Nevertheless, it doesn't look like crude oil production is still going up, but it's a huge fight, because from what we gather, this is purely organized crime. So it's not going to be easy to defeat that, but they started work already on that front. They also gave 5 billion to state governors. Initially, I think they wanted to share the money to Nigerians. They're using the same sort of trader money platform, but at some point they realized that the data that they had wasn't that good and didn't think it was a good idea. Of course, a lot of people push back. Now, one thing you must give this administration, though, is when you do criticize them, they tend to step back and make corrections and then move on. So they did try to make corrections and prefer to give 5 billion naira to each of the state governors to share to their citizens, and also buy 100,000 bags of rice and 40,000 bags of maize. But that actually hasn't really worked out as well as they expected, because some states haven't even started sharing anything at all. And that is still a little bit shaky. However, I mean, as far as the FG is concerned, they have actually given out that money. The president as well has been junketing the entire world. Kind of reminds me of Obasanjo days. when he just resumed, when he was president, back then in 99, 2000, he traveled quite a lot. So he was trying to mend fences with a lot of countries across the world. Of course, this current president has been moving as well, light speed on the diplomatic front, him and the vice president. So I think they visited like 11 countries so far. Crazy. Yeah, so all in a bid to try and at least improve Nigeria's standing on the diplomatic front, as well as look for foreign direct investment for the country. And so far, it looks like we've gotten some promises. That's what it is. Close to $20 billion in investment from foreign investors. Indians as well are lining up, we hear, to fund Nigeria's or to invest in the country. But one thing I also gather is that a lot of these investments is not just going to come as cash. It's not like they're just going to give you all cash like that. Most times, these investments do have some kind of strings to it. For example, they will tell you that you have to use their own companies so for example, if they're going to invest in infrastructure, you're probably going to use their own companies for the infrastructure development, similar to what Germany did with Siemens when we were looking for money for investment in the power sector. So Siemens was basically the German company that was going to facilitate all that using German funds. So similar deals, looks like that's what the current government is also doing. The NGX, that's the all-share index for those in the stock market, hit an all-time high during this 100 days as well. For a lot of people who don't know, as much as Main Street, which is where all of us all belong to, has been ruling, has been suffering, has been complaining, with economic hardship, the stock market seems to be on a different tangent entirely. They see, it appears that they kind of like some of the policies of the government so far, and so stocks have basically recovered all that losses that we incurred. I'm sure if you guys remember 2008 and 2009, and it's still climbing. We did have a little bit of a dip yesterday, but stocks are still very, very strong, back to where they were over a decade ago. And of course, just recently we heard the FG has approved increase of salaries for tertiary institutions by a whopping 35%. So is that what is to come next? Who knows? All right. So those were the achievements. But I mean, those achievements do have their own fallouts, and that's what I've tried to do here. So what have been the fallouts of the achievement? The first one that comes to mind is the exchange rate. My God. So looks like we're going back to where we were before June 14. So you can see the exchange rate disparity here. It was really, really huge, because at that time, the central bank under Emefiele, and of course under President Buhari, preferred to have a fixed exchange rate at about 480 or thereabout, and then but the parallel market had its own way of determining its own price, and exchange rate at that time was averaging about 740, 750. And the interesting thing was that it was kind of flat for a while, especially immediately after the election, and we had very flattish exchange rate, as you can see here. But as we now merge the windows, everything joined together. It was the same thing. Exchange rate in the parallel market and the official market was about the same for a few days, until everything just went haywire. As you can see here, the official rate is still, hovering around 750, 770 and all of that. But as you can see, the parallel market rate is closing in on 1,000 naira to the dollar. Who would have ever thought that would be here? But that's what's looking like. So in terms of the fallouts of the achievement, exchange rate close to $1,000 naira to the dollar, depreciated by 24.5% in 3 months already. FX, and that depreciation is of course from where we were before June 14. FX reserves is now $33 billion, down from $35 billion. If you listen to JP Morgan, they'll tell you that it's probably $3 billion. So that this might not really represent the actual external reserves. Fuel prices surged to 617 naira per liter average across Nigeria, and looking likely that fuel prices might also increase again. I did see some cues over the last few days as oil prices start to hit $90 and exchange rate starts to hit $1,000. People are worried that fuel prices might go up again. And one of the fallouts as well is that people don't even go out again these days. Diesel prices hit $1,000 naira per liter as well. So that's the fallout of a lot of this decision. The electric tariff increases that were meant to also happen were frozen. And so subsidy is back in the power sector. So the government is also subsidizing power right now. So as much as we've removed subsidy from petrol, subsidies back on the power side, inflation rate, of course, we all know 25.8% and is likely to keep rising. I actually think it's a lot more than this, but I mean, this is what the official number says, 25.8%. Labor unrest is increasing. Every day we hear there's going to be strike. We're not sure whether it'll strike, but they say it'll strike. And then now we're even seeing NLC and TUC going their own separate ways. Typically, NLC and TUC are always on the same side when it comes to strike. But now, I think TUC is kind of deterring, but NLC is insisting that there might be a strike. So this is hovering on the government as well. Crude oil production is still very low, despite a lot of the work that the government is doing. We're still around 1.2 or so million barrels per day. And we've now lost our first position as Africa's largest crude oil export to Angola. In terms of the Purchasing Managers Index, which sort of gauges how private sectors or private businesses view the economy, it's dropped to the lowest in 5 months at 50.22 points, which suggests, businesses are worried about the outlook of the economy and don't really think things are going to get better anytime soon. That's just their opinion. So this is usually tracked by Stanbic IBTC, I believe. And of course, we did hear public debt is now 87.3 trillion. That was also because they had added ways and means, which was the CBN loan to the federal government. It's now part of Nigeria's public debt. So now we are at 87.3 trillion in public debt. And of course, lastly, if you go on Twitter streets or a lot of social media streets, or even in regular main street, what you keep hearing is premium shege. So people are worried. People are feeling the heat of what is happening in the economy. So what are the major headwinds that this current government has that I think? I feel labor unrest is likely to boil over if they don't address it quickly. So that is one major challenge the current government might face in the next 100 days. Of course, there's also that Supreme Court case hanging over with Atiku and Obi saying that they're going to take they're going to appeal at the Supreme Court over the election victory. So that is still a bit of a challenge for the current president. There's also a huge controversy around his university certificate. I don't know why that hasn't gone yet, but looks like there's a bit of a problem there. So that is also one issue that the government needs to face as well, or is facing as well, and will likely face as time goes on until this is cleared. Frustrations are still there. Nigerians are still looking to japa. If you speak to foreign currency operators, like BDC operators, they will tell you that a lot of their customers are people who have basically sold all their properties and just want to get the hell out of the country. So that will continue to be a challenge, for the current government. Even though I feel as exchange rate continues to depreciate, you're going to get less people wanting to japa because it now becomes very expensive to japa. And poverty is rising across the country. Look around you, people are really struggling as well. So the president would need to deal with that matter as quickly as possible, because when you have people that are very poor, hungry, and can't eat, it tends to be it can be a major social crisis. So that's one thing the government needs to deal with. And the government as well, people are complaining a lot about image laundering and always trying to be put the government in good light. Even little things that the government do, they try to sort of make it sound like it's a big deal. So people are already pointing out holes, and that's a bit of a challenge, because you need a government that has strong integrity, and that when they say they've done this, they actually have done it, and not just trying to sort of win in the court of public opinion. So it's something that the government needs to watch out for. And of course, foreign investors are yet to return to Nigeria. So the government will need to continue to move foreign investors. It's going to take a bit of time for them to come back, but it looks like a lot of the things that we're meant to be doing, we're doing, but it's taking time because foreign investors want reassurance that we would at least clear the current FS backlogs that we have. And so that needs to be clear. And of course, this little gist of $3 billion net that they claim we'll have, now that we'll have new CBN, a new acting CBN governor, acting CBN deputy governors, maybe there'll be a bit more transparency and we can actually see where we are in terms of external reserves and the country's finances from the central bank point of view. Of course, this current government is also being accused of nepotism. I think there's fear that there might be crony capitalism and state capture. So that's one thing the government will need to deal with. People are wary that this is looking like a government of friends, and so, but we hope that's not really what it is, and this is just a government of competent people. Likely surge in insecurity, that is not new to all of you here. That's what typically happens when the economy is pretty bad. And of course, youth unrest will likely go on. People are really agitated. I think a few days ago, there was a protest because of the death of a Nigerian musician. So you can see that people can actually come out to protest, and all you need is just one little trigger. So that's one thing the government needs to also be very wary of. And of course, climate change. We've seen what's happening in Libya. We've seen what's happening in some other countries. We fear that, we hope that we don't get through this. Someone was telling me yesterday that he was driving through Terminland and when it was raining, and he could see the water levels really risen. He's never seen it that high before. I didn't see it myself, but he was really worried. And somebody else said that, look, if you even go to Eco Atlantic, the water level there as well seems to have risen. And so these are just some of the issues that the government will need to deal with. So what do we do in the next 100 days? Quickly stabilize the exchange rate. That needs to be done, and it's up to this man here to make sure that the exchange rate is stabilized. We need to clear FX backlogs, $10 billion or thereabout. That needs to be done. Tough decisions on the IMF, on whether to go on IMF loans or let's seek bilateral loans, but we do need some form of bailout ASAP before the end of this year, actually. So the next 100 days is very, very pivotal for this government. We need to secure FDI, like I mentioned. Disagreements with labor unions needs to be sorted out. Civil service reforms is very important. As much as they're trying to increase minimum wage for workers, civil service reforms is also something that the government needs to put on the table. There's a huge physical imbalance that the government has or does also need to deal with. As you all know, we have a huge physical deficit that needs to be resolved, because that's actually why we're going to the central bank to borrow via ways and means. So we still need to plug that hole. And of course, Dangote refinery, is it going to start November, as they say? Remember, they claimed it was going to start in July, but now it's November. Dangote refinery people are also saying, look, we do need crude for us to actually refine. So a little bit of a cliffhanger there, but we're hoping that that will kickstart. So that's one thing they need to do in the next 100 days. Of course, increase crude oil production. There's a strong belief that once we're able to increase crude oil production to at least 1.8 million barrels per day, things might start to stabilize. When I say stabilize, I mean the exchange rate and a lot of the economic indicators as well. Crude oil theft needs to be eliminated. We also need to improve the power situation, and then start spending on infrastructure development. The roads are really bad, and Nigeria does need infrastructure if you want to grow this economy. There's also geopolitical tension across West Africa and the Sahel region as well. So Tinubu has been moving as well to try and douse a lot of all those issues. We are seeing coups left, right, center. This also needs to be top burner on his agenda so that we don't start to have migrant crisis here in Nigeria. And of course, intra-Africa trade is very important for this current administration. So that essentially is my presentation. Thank you so much, Rotus. I hope that I've been able to at least do a good summary of the first 100 days of the current administration. Thank you very much, Joanna.